everybody. I'm Ashley Swartz, founder of Furious Minds, an advertising technology collective here in New York City. We're at the grind. Summer's over, kids are back to school, so hopefully this will become more conversational than ever. I welcome your comments, segment suggestions, feedback to ashley@furious-minds.com. Bring it on, let's chat, and let's make this more interesting than ever. So I want to talk today about the press release yesterday and the press conference that Bezos had for Amazon announcing new products and what that means. There's been a lot of editorial commentary about it. I'm going to try and take a slightly different approach. I'm not going to rehash what everybody said. I'm sure if you're watching this segment, you read what Amazon announced, or you actually watched the press release, the press event itself on CNET. I'm going to talk about sort of a 30,000-foot take on what this means for our industry specifically. So first of all, I think there's a general assessment, and this is a bit of a reiteration of what many have said, is that this is an incredibly anti-Apple strategy, which I don't know is a bad thing, right? Apple's put its money in the basket of hardware. That's where they make the majority of their margin. And they're really kind of a one-stop, one-shop electronics manufacturer, right? They have one variant of a TV. They may have different screen sizes if they come out with a television. It really has one sort of set of features. They have a tablet that we have iterative models that get better, but we really only have one option in sort of every category of product they manufacture. And what Bezos said, which I thought was really notable, is that they don't make the best tablets per se. They make the best tablets at any price point, I believe. We're not building the best tablet at a certain price, he said. We're building the best tablet at any price, which I think is pretty interesting, right? So large consumer electronics manufacturers like Samsung have proven that you can get to a position of market leadership if you offer a broad product portfolio and you serve a hardware need for any potential consumer, right? So anti-Apple, moving away from sort of one-stop shopping, focusing on services and content, and creating somewhat of an open infrastructure, meaning that you can consume Amazon content across any device, which is one of the reasons it makes no sense not to buy a Kindle, because you consume the Kindle content or Amazon's content on a tablet, on a smartphone, on an Android device, as well as an iOS device, and they're giving choice in hardware at different price points. The other thing that's interesting is that if you look at the fact that in their new paperweight, which is a pure sort of e-reader Kindle, as well as their Fire HD variant, is that they are offering a 3G for the paperweight and a 4G LTE all-you-can-eat solution at a premium price point, which for me is an effort to mitigate operators, right? So in some respects, Apple has been a victim of their operator partners' inability to fulfill their promise about the promise of delivering a network that can actually allow the device to function at its best, right? Some might suggest that perhaps AT&T was in violation of their agreement of service with Apple and their partnership, because personally in New York, the network is appalling, right? My phone drops calls, etc. We all know this, it's been a problem. I think Amazon offering a one-stop shop and not dealing with that incremental gigabyte constrained tariff every month in order to make the most out of their hardware, as well as then just fixing in pricing by virtue of being sort of an MVNO or a reseller of wireless network services with their network partners. I think they're mitigating a lot of risk downstream, because I believe the operator model is going to be turned upside down in the near future. The other thing is that, you know, the device agnostic thing, which I alluded to in the beginning, is pretty interesting, right? So the fact that you can purchase content from Amazon, and with the exception of sort of the stuff that you're getting as a bonus of an Amazon Prime customer, you can purchase that content and use it across any device. So I left my Kindle on an airplane on a trip about 4 weeks ago. I was completely distraught by the fact that my 50 Shades of Grey was no longer available to me and I had to go out and buy it. However, I had an aha moment and I pulled up my iPad and I realized that because I had the Kindle application downloaded, I could get it from the cloud and easily read it, as well as on my iPhone. So I think that Amazon is really focusing on customer service, and that's also a really interesting juxtaposition now, right? So what we have is this world of traditional bricks and mortar retailing meeting digital e-tailing, right? And I think that companies like Zappos and companies like Amazon have demonstrated that good old-fashioned service, improvements and refinement and efficiencies within logistics and distribution strategies, as well as just delivering customers what they want and meeting and exceeding expectations most of the time, builds a good business. You know, innovation, it can be done in ways that are not overt and only through your product portfolio, but also through how you fulfill your product portfolio and deliver your services to market. So what are a lot of people not talking about as this relates to the product announcements? In parallel to this, which has unfortunately been downplayed a little bit, is the DOJ decision against the ebook publishers and Apple in regards to collusion and price fixing for ebooks that are distributed through Apple. The reality that has been talked about but hasn't been related to how this affects their new product releases is that Amazon wins, right? Their cost of physical distribution of goods, which is where their bread is buttered, and their core business model is about being the place you go on the internet to buy anything, right? They have year over year only seen an increase of physical distribution costs. I think they've set up distribution hubs in 10 DMAs, major cities around the US. They've seen an increase year over year of only 33%. Whereas last year, year over year, 2011 versus 2010 was 82%. They're getting more efficient, right? And if you look at content and services and digital distribution as a leader or a loss leader for pulling what is their physical sales, which is where I suspect, although we don't know much about their top line, where still the plurality of their revenue is derived, it's an interesting positioning, right? That they now have won the ebook race, and that will drive possibly their bricks and mortar product sales as well. This is sort of comparative to the Record Industry Association of America, I think, and the record industry and how it fought Napster. I know I always make this analogy about 12 years ago, because at the end of the day, what we try to do is fight technology and outsmart the consumer. And what is so amazing about this time and time again is that a free market, macroeconomic laws of supply and demand allowing them to win and be victorious is always at the end of the day in the best interest of everybody in the ecosystem and value chain. And the other thing that everybody seems to forgetting is because we're so nervous as with print and magazine, print and publications and what the tablet did to them and what sort of e-content rather did, the impact on their value chain. Everybody's incredibly nervous, right? Well, what's happening with books and publishing holistically? The reality is that when you make it easier to buy, you make it more price competitive, and you actually reduce the costs of publishing and distribution, people read more. If I can get a book when I want it at that moment and start to read it, I'm more likely to buy it. And if I can get it easier and the acquisition and procurement process is that much more streamlined, I'm probably going to read more, which is exactly what's happening with the Kindle, and Amazon has created that proof point. The Record Industry Association analogy, of America analogy, is because at that point in time, what we were doing is we were making it as difficult as possible for musicians to publish and distribute and create their own content. That was sort of the inadvertent result of fighting technology. Again, that's why today at a point in time we say the record industry is dead, which is the physical bricks and mortar distribution of music content. And music is more alive than ever because artists can get their content to their fans and audience with ease without relying upon an intermediary like a record label or a print publisher in the case of ebooks. The other thing that went really unnoted is that is this whole thing of XRay, right? We've had XRay on the Kindle, which allows you to dive a little bit more into the content you're reading. Well, we now have XRay on the Kindle Fire HD, right? And in case you didn't pick up on that, that's content-related metadata. If you can be watching a video and dive into that video and get information from IMDb about that actor or that actress or the movie itself, that's content-related metadata. So I'm going to pause on that for a minute, and I'm going to go forward to the last thing that some folks have been conjecturing, but what's really interesting is that will eventually Amazon go to a free or next to nothing subsidy model for its low-end Kindle and Kindle Paperweight and Kindle Fire now, right? So that's always been a theory of some, is that the eventuality is that if you're an Amazon Prime customer, you'll get the hardware for free because you're more likely to buy content. Amazon will make up the hit they take on subsidizing the hardware at a zero price point when they sell the content on the back end at a high margin because content really doesn't have a lot of hard distribution costs. So that's interesting. I'm going to actually put forward today another theory. My theory is that as you start to have content that is related, or the plurality of your content that is consumed, meaning at a point in time what is popular and demands the greatest audience and eyeballs on hardware, if in fact that is meta tagged and you can actually contextually search that, you can contextually deliver advertising inside that content. And if that's the case, that suggests a whole new business model for Amazon, which is that they will be able to offer hardware for free and content on it at competitive pricing or subsidized, that is subsidized by advertising, not necessarily by hit they're willing to take on their bottom line in order to be a loss leader for future sales of content and services. So I think that it's a new day coming. I think that when the biggest threat to Apple in the tablet space, which is a media-centric device, and why we're seeing an incredible proliferation of rich media and video in particular as a result, if in fact we now are having more and more content distributed through these channels that is meta tagged, and we can deliver contextually relevant information, whether it be related content, i.e. the genomic sort of model of Pandora and content serving, or we can deliver advertising, it will be a new day for publishers, brands, distributors, and sellers. So welcome your comments. Let me know what you think. Tell me if I'm crazy. Tell me if I'm not crazy. I prefer the latter because I get the first a lot more often. My email is ashley@furious-minds.com. Have a great fall, and I'm excited to continue talking with you. Bye.